Hello everyone, welcome to Indian Economy by Aman Soni. In today's news hour, we will be discussing the important economy articles from the Hindu newspaper. This is the Delhi edition. In page 1, we do not have any article related to economy, so you can skip it. When you go to the editorial page, today we have an important article related to the physical consolidation. So let's go through the article in a detailed manner. The article says that 2 years of real growth in economic activities have wiped out by COVID completely, which the budget must take into note. So it says whatever the growth that we have achieved before the COVID has been completely wiped out because of the COVID, and we have come to a situation where we are in the zero position again. And this is a good chance for us to increase the growth and also look at our physical consolidation. Let's go through the article. The authors have said that the National Statistical Office has recently released a survey wherein it estimates the India's real GDP to grow at 9.2%, which is 30 basis points less than the RBI's rate. Real GDP growth is when from the nominal GDP growth, if we remove the inflation, it is the real GDP growth. And this estimate of 9.2% is 30 basis points less than what RBI had estimated. And where there are various reasons why this updated estimate has become lower. Let us look into it further into the article. Because of the main cause is the third wave of the COVID-19. And the sectors which were supposed to improve, like the trade, the transportation, have not recovered. And the further reduction in private consumption by individuals is in a low phase. All these are leading to the real GDP growth of India to come down. What were the earlier estimates of the GDP? Earlier, the IMF and the OECD had estimated India to grow at a rate of 8.5 to 8.1% respectively. But the factors that limited this growth, one of the reasons was base effect. What is base effect? Say, when we compare a previous year, say 2019 levels to 2020 levels, if the 2019 level is so less that even a slight increase in the growth in 2020 will lead to a high increase in percentage terms. Say the growth in 2018 was 10%, percentage terms in 10%. Here from 100 it increased to 120. Here there is a growth of 20%. And suddenly because of COVID the growth fell to 50. Now again in 2021 it has increased only to 100. Even though it has fallen from 120 to 50 and finally increased to 100, the increase is almost 50%. In percentage terms, it shows a higher number. This is called the base effect. And because of base effect, the growth in this year, it is showing higher numbers. And the authors have said GDP in real terms have been slightly higher compared to that 1920 levels. And the main line of the article, they say the 2 years growth has been wiped out completely because of COVID. Now we are beginning with a clean slate and there are opportunities for us present. Now what are those? Let's look. And what are the conditions that are currently existing? The gross fixed capital formation, that is the investment. Gross fixed capital is nothing but the investment in the economy is around 30% and the capacity utilization is around 60%. Capacity utilization is if a firm has a ability to produce 100 units, when we say capacity utilization is 60 units, we are saying the firm is only using 60% of its resources into production. That means when there is no demand, the firm won't produce. The low capacity utilization shows the overall low demand in the economy. And Because of less investment, because of low capacity utilization, the income to the factors of production would be low, thus leading to low private investment because the consumption is also lower. See, as we discussed, the private final consumption expenditure is just 6.9% in 2021-22, and the demand didn't pick up because of various reasons. The marginal propensity of to consume of people, it didn't increase. What is marginal propensity to consume? If your income increased by 100 rupees, how much of this 100 rupees would you spend on something? This is the marginal propensity to consume. And the MSME sector is doing badly because of all these factors. And also there are supply side bottlenecks like the global crude prices, which are very high, which increases the cost of production and the cost of production of primary products. And because of all these reasons, the economy is not doing well. Thus, they are saying that even the nominal GDP would be around only 12 to 13%. So the real GDP would be lesser than what we are expecting if we remove the impact of the inflation. Next, the authors are discussing about the tax revenue of the government. The tax revenue of the government has slightly increased during the first 8 months, and this slight increase in the tax revenue may help us to reduce the fiscal deficit by a small whisker, by a small margin. But we won't be able to reduce that much because we won't be able to achieve the disinvestment targets that we have set for ourselves. And the authors going forward have suggested various measures to address the issues that we discussed. And what are those? The author says the GST compensation to the states have to be extended because various states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh would suffer otherwise. And the authors also say the corporate tax rate reduction that has been there for a period of up to 2023, it has to be further extended so that the greater number of the private investment comes into the economy, thus leads to the aggregate demand increase when the investment increases. And the national monetization pipeline also has to include the government owned land assets. The disinvestment initiatives have to be accelerated so that the government can get more money in a faster manner. And what is the main prerogative for the government? The main objective of the government is now to kickstart the consumption and investment demand. How would that be possible? By investing in the health sector, by investing in the key infrastructure sectors, by pushing the state governments and the public sectors to perform well. Because if the consumption demand is weaker, the overall demand would be weaker and the income would be weaker. The economy can't do well. So the authors also support an urban counterpart of the MG Narega program, wherein a guaranteed employment would be given even to the urban labor, so that this would finally help in improving the consumption of expenditure of the people. In addition to these schemes, they also support that direct support schemes have to be given to those sectors which are directly impacted by COVID, say the tourism sector, the transportation sector, which are directly impacted by COVID. They should get some special measures. And the authors say that this is the time to come back to fiscal consolidation. The 15th Finance Commission had given a fiscal deficit target of 5.5% of GDP for 2022-23. At this point of time, it may not be achievable because the government has to kickstart the economy by expenditure. The RBI also will go for a free monetary policy wherein they would reduce the interest rates, thus increasing the money supply in the economy. But slowly over a period of time, by reducing the deficit levels by 0.5% slowly every year, by 2025-2026, we should be able to come back to the 4% of GDP physical deficit target. by slowly reducing the physical deficit year by year by 0.5 percentage points. And they also say that a high-powered committee should be constituted to examine the sustainability of the central and state government debts. So this is the article. The summary being, what are the various factors that are constraining the performance of the economy? What are the reasons for which the consumption is not taking place? What are the supply side constraints? And how the government can increase the consumption expenditure? And what are the measures the government can do, like the increasing the GST compensation period, continuing the lower corporate tax for some more time. All these factors can lead to improving the economy. Moving on to the next article. This article talks about the education budget in Indian economy. This article says, even before the pandemic, the public spending on education in India is so low. It is even lower than the middle income countries like Vietnam. And it says, instead of increasing the budget during the pandemic on education, the central government had previously in the last budget had reduced the expenditure on the education. Only 6 states have increased their funding by 5%. So this is a poor state of affairs. And they say this is the time for the education system to be improved because there are so many poor and disadvantaged children during the pandemic. Around 260 million children who got enrolled in preschool and especially in government schools, they missed out classes during the COVID times. They didn't have access to technologies and they're losing even their basic literary skills, numerical skills, and even the habit of learning because they're not in touch with schools, they're not in touch with the teachers. So this is the right time to increase the education expenditure. And they say just increasing the spending won't be enough if the other structural problems remain. And what are the other measures that should be taken? It should be back to school campaign so that children are brought back to schools, enrollment drive, because some people would be dropped out in this COVID because of various financial constraints. So they have to be re-enrolled into the schemes. Nutrition programs like the midday meal have to be increased so that malnutrition can be addressed. Reorientation and reorganization of the curriculum of the students, additional learning materials, additional education programs, additional teachers and teaching aids so that the ease of teaching and the understanding level of the students increases, and collect data on everything so that we can come to meaningful conclusions in the future. And the article also discusses that during the pandemic, the government has been tremendously increasing investment in the technology in education. So the author questions that, are we doing the right thing? Because only less than 20% could access the technology and the recorded videos, because 80% of the students didn't have access to mobile phones even to look at their Zoom classes or online classes. So is this the right thing to do? Or else what is the right thing to do in such a scenario where people are not having access to technology? So the author says the right thing to do is spending on the teacher training, because we now only spend around 0.15 percentage on teacher training. That is so less. And the author mentions the global standards that are there on education. The UNESCO says that public spending on education should be around 4 to 6% of GDP, but our GDP is around only 2% of spending. We only spend 2.8% of GDP on education in 2018-2019 as per the economic survey. Then they say that we don't have a proper data on how much we are spending, because the survey says we have spent 2.8 percentage. The Ministry of Education says that we have spent 4.3 percentage. So the author says it's high time that we record data properly on how much we are spending on education, because it is a crucial aspect, and without education and health, the human development cannot be achieved. The summary of article being, What is the state of funding of education in India? Need for funding for the education sector, the high time during the pandemic, the need for teacher training, and the need for other additional measures that need to be taken apart from increasing the spending. These are all the two main articles in economy today. And in news page, we don't have any article related to economy. Same with the case in the world page. We don't have any article related to economy. And in the money wise page, we have something related to mutual funds. This is not important for our exam. And there is an article about mis-selling in health insurance. Mis-selling means when you are deliberately hiding some information to sell something. That is mis-selling. So the article talks about how the insurance companies and insurance agents mis-sell, and it also talks about mis-buying, wherein the people deliberately hide information with the insurance companies. This as such may not be useful from an exam point of view. You can just go through it from a general point of view for increasing your knowledge and knowing about more about the health insurance. And those are all the two articles. And for all the concepts that are mentioned in the articles, you can look our e-talk video where we will be explaining on detailed about all the concepts mentioned in the articles. Thank you so much.